Happening now on Grid Tonight. NASCAR is bringing the option tire to Richmond after the Olympic break. How will this shake up the strategies on race day? Dale Coyne Racing is giving another Indy Next grad a chance to make his IndyCar debut. Can Hunter Malcare deliver in Toronto? Mazda MX-5 Cup cars will race on an oval for the very first time. What type of show will they put on at Martinsville? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambeth, and with me are Ben Snyder from Grid Encore and NASCAR.info and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now here's Ben with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Good evening, Matt. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for having me once again. Always an honor to fill in here on Grid Tonight. After testing them out during the NASCAR All-Star race in North Wilkesboro, the option tire is back, and it will make its debut in a points-paying Cup Series race on August 11th at Richmond Raceway. Teams will have the opportunity to use two types of Goodyear rubber in the 400-lap Richmond Cup race. The softer option tire is designed to give the drivers more short-term grip with the risk of long-term durability, while the baseline prime tire will provide a more lasting ride with potentially less grip with a harder compound. Teams will be allotted 6 sets of prime tires and 2 sets of option tires for the race. Photo on your screen taken by Alejandro Alvarez from NASCAR Digital Media. Matt, how will teams utilize the tire options strategically in this Richmond race?
Well, first of all, great, glad to be back, and thank you, Ben, to you and for Mr. Owens for filling in over the last couple of weeks as well. A bit of a teammate shuffle going around. Obviously, we know Josh again this week. He'll be back with us next week. So thank you to you guys for filling in for both of us over the last couple of weeks. Feels like last time I was on the show, which was 3 weeks ago, we were talking NASCAR and we were talking tyres off the back of New Hampshire with all the wet weather and such like. And here we are again. I'm back on the show and we're talking black round things. But this is, I think, positive news. How will the option tyre fare? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how the race pans out. But strategically, are we going to see, if we get a caution with at the end of the race, but not specifically, because of course the end of the 2 stages with, I don't know, 10, 12 laps to go in a stage, is someone going to bolt on a set of those soft tyres and rocket their way to the front? Normally we'd see 2 tyre stop making that, jump in the pit lane, but now we're going to see potentially the tyre offset becoming a thing. And that will obviously be key at the end of the race, especially for some people that are outside the bubble when we get back into talking about playoff picture and such like after the Olympic break, to vault themselves into potential winning position at the end of the race if it comes down to it. We know we've seen those Richmond races go fairly long in terms of green flag running in the last few years, and actually they've been strategically quite good races. I think the spring race last year sticks out to me as a really good strategy race without too much action, but it is certainly going to spice things up if we do get late cautions in stages and, of course, at the end of the race.
Teams will be given an extended practice session, so they'll be able to see how the car handles on both of those tire compounds. Now, in qualifying, they'll have to use the prime tire, but they'll have the freedom to start the actual race on the tire compound of their choosing. I guess the option name makes sense this time. In the last handful of Richmond races, it's mostly become a track position race, as the short track package obviously needs improvement. That's been a constant talking point all throughout the last few years of this next-gen car. Elton Sawyer, Senior Vice President of Competition, said anytime they put the teams in the position to manage the tires, we see great racing, so that will be the goal going into Richmond. Now, at North Wilkesboro, the option tire didn't do what NASCAR expected it to do, and the Bristol tire was too aggressive, although that certainly made for some entertaining racing and strategy that played out there on that day. Matt, do you think the option tire will help improve the on-track product at Richmond, and could it be something we see at other short tracks down the road if they decide this was a success? Could they use it elsewhere?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, we saw the spring race at Richmond, of course, that was affected by rain as well, and we had the wet tire in the beginning of the race in the spring. Now we're going to have another tire option for the teams to get their head around. Strange that that's just the way it's worked out, I guess, but it didn't quite work, did it, at the All-Star race when everyone was on it at the same time. I think now in a longer race with 2 sets, you're going to have more, to use the phrase I used before, offset between cars running the different tyre compounds throughout the races, and we might see something wildly different depending on how the teams see how the tyres are, being used in the practice sessions. So it's going to be something to look out for. It will certainly spice things up and give that second Richmond date, which we know is on the cusp of potentially fading away entirely, something really good. And then we'll have the traditional, they've got to keep this. And by then it'll perhaps be too late, because we might even get a calendar announcement by then. But it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. I'm guessing you've got similar feelings, Ben, perhaps on this.
I'll go to our friend Matthew Owens first. And Matthew, thank you again for filling in for us last week here. I think it might be used more for a pit stop from a playoff bubble team to try to win a shorter stage rather than try to win the race with 70 or 80 laps to go. That's true. The stages are going to throw a whole nother wrinkle into the strategy aspect of this as well. Matt, I want to see these on a road course. I think that the option in prime tire, obviously we see it in Formula One, and we have 3 different tire compounds there that, and of course there's no refueling because races are short enough. So that's where all your strategy, or most of your strategy at least, comes in. And it's obviously been very successful there with Pirelli, and Firestone obviously uses it on the road and street courses for IndyCar. But, when we go to the Indianapolis 500, we're not talking about red versus black. We're talking about strategy from many different aspects, but that's not one of them. So I don't know. I mean, it's just gotten very mixed reviews. I know we tried it at the All-Star race, I want to say 2018, 2019, somewhere in that time span. I think the option tires were green lettered at the time for Goodyear. And we just tried it again and again, kind of got a lukewarm response. So I'm glad NASCAR is trying it again here for a points-paying race, because I think that, anytime there's, higher stakes on the line, I think that's also going to impact how teams choose to utilize this. But I personally, it's just a hypothesis from me. I'm hardly an engineer or a tire specialist or anything. But I would think that we might see results closer to what we're intending to provide by doing this if we try it on a road course. That would be the next test for me for NASCAR. Can we try to use this? And I know, but that's tougher because all of our exhibition races, all 2 of them, I guess, the Clash and the All-Star race are races that take place on short ovals. But if we could at least do some tire testing on the road courses with these option tires, I think that would be the next step that I'd like to see.
Yeah, perhaps roll it out at Watkins Glen or the Roval in the play, or one of them in the playoffs later in the year. Give a bunch of teams some sets to take up there 1 week, and give them a run. And then and we know how the Watkins Glen race last year was a bit of a dud. Last summer, of course, now it's moving to the playoffs, which bumps it. It could be bumped even more if we had tire options. Adam says, "Good evening, Adam. Ben, I'll agree with your option tires on a road course. Which road course would you like to see?" Well, I think Watkins Glen probably takes P1, doesn't it, on that chart?
Yeah, I agree. I think Watkins Glen is, I think, sometimes called the super speedway of NASCAR road courses because of how fast it is, how fast sweeping a lot of corners are, and I think that could really play into the tire strategy's favor. And Matthew also bringing up a good point about Wilkesboro, saying it was just repaved. Richmond's obviously much more worn out track, so that's going to be interesting as well. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm excited. I don't expect it to work as well as I think we would all like to see it, or as well as we're hoping or intending. But I appreciate that they haven't given up on it yet, because I think it is a nice way to implement a little bit more strategy into the races. And we see it in other series. It's maybe something that NASCAR can learn from. So we'll see how it turns out. But some big news here. We're actually going to get it a points-paying race, so we'll have that to look forward to. We move on now to our second story of the evening. Indy Next graduate Hunter McElroy will make his NTT IndyCar Series debut with Dale Coyne Racing this weekend on the streets of Toronto. McElroy will drive a number 18 Honda as Jack Harvey will sit out Toronto as he continues to deal with neck and back issues. Now, in his road to Indy career, McElroy finished second in the 2019 USF 2000 Championship. In 2020 and 2021, he finished fifth and third, respectively, in USF Pro 2000. Then fourth and second in Indy Next competition in 2022 and 2023. He decided not to pursue a third year of Indy Next because he felt ready to graduate to IndyCar and has spent the 2024 season instead running IMSA endurance races and waiting for the right IndyCar opportunity to come along. Perhaps this would be it for him. Both photos in this segment taken by James Black from Penske Entertainment. We'll bring Kobe back in for this story as well. Kobe, I'll go to you first. How good is it to see Dale Coyne Racing giving multiple drivers from Indy Next a chance to compete at the top level of open wheel racing in the United States.
I think what Delquan Racing is doing right now for all these Indy Next grads is absolutely fantastic. I know on your show, Encore, Ben, we're always talking about the Formula the Formula 2, Formula 3, and how the road to F1 ladder system seems to be broken since all of these great F2 drivers don't really get a chance to go to Formula 1. Instead, you see them in Super Formula, you see them in endurance racing. And I even said in the chat room that night when we were last talking about it, that it's basically becoming a feeder series for IndyCar, Formula E, and sports car racing. And unfortunately, when you have all these feeder series are used at the very top level, it really seems like you don't have enough seats for all the talent. So there's always going to be someone waiting on the sidelines and ready for an opportunity to show what they can do. I feel like, I know we're going to talk about him in just a little bit, Toby Sowery, who really impressed at Mid-Ohio, Hunter Malcaray, who I think is, a very good driver. I thought he was certainly one of the top drivers on the road to Indy circuit. And I was actually a little surprised that he did not pursue a third year of Indy Next. I thought, finally that third year he'd get over the hump, be one of the favorites for the championship. But like you said, Ben, he really believed that he was ready for IndyCar, and he was just waiting for the right moment to make his IndyCar debut. And it seems like all that waiting is going to pay off. Toby Sowery has also waited to make his IndyCar debut, and it paid off for him. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes for Hunter Malcaray on the streets of Toronto. And also, Delquan Racing gave Nolan Siegel his first big break in the IndyCar series. He was originally supposed to drive a part-time schedule for that team, and look where Nolan is now. No, he's graduated completely from Indy Next, and now he's an Arrow McLaren driver for the foreseeable future. We'll have to see how that goes for him, but it's nice to see Delquan Racing giving these young drivers opportunities to race in the NTT IndyCar series.
Yeah, a couple of points on this. You could say perhaps from the outside, if you weren't a avid IndyCar follower, why is this happening? why is there a revolving door at Coyne? But this is good for Hunter McElrea. Certainly to your point, Kobe, I think he probably would have been the championship favourite in Indy Next if he'd stayed around again for this year, because he was on the pace with Christian Rasmussen pretty much all through the year last year, and came up second. But good to see another fast Australian, and I'll talk about them in a little while when we get to Hots and Knots, getting a ride, been waiting for this opportunity to come up, and hopefully, like a lot of the people that have jumped in the coin cars so far this year, which we're going to get to in a second, he'll grab it with both hands and run with it.
Well, meanwhile, we'll go to Adam's comment here first. Don't know if the IndyCar race in Toronto will be held. Plenty of rain and flooding up there this week. That's the first I've heard of that. So that's concerning to hear. I don't like to hear that. Hopefully everybody up there is doing okay. And hopefully we can have the race go on without issue. But certainly thinking of everybody up there, if the weather's providing those poor conditions here for everybody. So hopefully that doesn't impact our race weekend. But I know Kobe brought up Toby Sowery. Let's go over to the other Delquan Racing entry and talk about the number 51 Honda this weekend. Toronto. Sowery will be back there, and later again next month at Portland. Now, Sowery's another driver from Indy Next who turned heads in his IndyCar debut in the first race of a hybrid era at Mid-Ohio. He started 24th in the 27-car field and worked his way up to a 13th place finish on his IndyCar debut. And that strong result at Mid-Ohio has now guaranteed him at least 2 more IndyCar races this year. So, Matt, if Sowery impresses again, could he put himself in the conversation? Should he be in the conversation for a full-time IndyCar seat in the near future?
Certainly, and that was a great debut at Mid-Ohio for another kid that doesn't live too far away from where I'm sat right now, which is just excellent. We've got so many locals in this part of the world doing great things at the moment. And Toby was another one. Had my eye on him a few years ago in British Formula 4 and Formula 3 on his way up. Then he kind of went a little bit off the radar and missing and popped up here and there, sort of a sporadic schedule. But again, great run last week. I think the problem, back to my original point when we started talking about this, on the coin thing is all these guys have only got a small pot of cash and not the big pot that they would like to have to bring to do more races for Coyne or for anybody else. So again, if he can continue this run, then team bosses at other teams maybe who will have seats available perhaps next year with people moving on, we'll look at Toby and give him a run. But certainly I was quite surprised when the news came that he was getting the drive at Mid-Ohio a couple of weeks ago, and then just absolutely did a great job after, as you say, Ben, qualifying down the field and coming through to get a great result. So if he can do the same in the next few weeks, and if, to Adam's point, Toronto does actually go ahead this weekend, and we hope that it will, he'll keep putting himself in the shop window, as they say.
Yeah, and on the point of the flood in Toronto, I saw that was happening. Yeah, and the flooding does not look good at all around the city. So hopefully we're going to keep our fingers crossed that obviously everyone in the area is going to be safe. Everyone who's been affected by those floods, and we'll be able to get the race on later this week. But yeah, you never want to see, significant flood events like that happening. Getting back to Toby Sowry, just like you, Matt, I was surprised as well when he was announced that he was going to be debuting an IndyCar with Dale Coyne Racing. Honestly, with Sowry focuses on sports car racing, I really thought that his time has passed, that he was not going to be able to race an IndyCar. And when you get these opportunities like this, you have to make the most of them. I think Toby did exactly that. And jumping into IndyCar in the middle of the season like this, given how competitive this 27 car field is, starting deep in the field, working your way up just outside the top 10, I think Toby Sowry has a lot to be proud of in his very first IndyCar race, especially first race of the hybrid era, as you mentioned, Ben. And now Sowry has earned 2 more opportunities in Toronto and Portland. I think he's certainly going to make the most of those as well, and we'll see where he goes from there. If he continues to run extremely well in these next 2 scheduled starts, maybe he could put himself in the conversation for a 2025 or even 2026 seat, or even a part-time schedule next year as well, because we know the 2025 driver market is really heating up, and there's a lot of great drivers who are going to be looking for seats. You have Alexander Rossi, who's now a free agent. Then you have 2 young guns as well. You have Callum Ilott and Teo Pourchaire also looking for IndyCar seats, and I'm sure a lot of other drivers are also looking to get into the series as well from other series. So you got your Indy next, and then put maybe some XF1 drivers could be coming over, drivers from Formula 2, Formula 3. There's just not enough seats for all of these talented drivers. But I know the IndyCar field can't really get that much bigger because we're already basically at the max right now of how many cars that we can really have. It's an unfortunate problem to have, but it's good to know that that the quality of talent coming IndyCar just keeps going up and up.
Oh, you'd rather have that problem than the opposite problem of having too few seats on the grid and not enough teams for all these drivers. And we do have a surplus of drivers, but we have pretty much the maximum amount of teams that we can place them in. And hopefully it's a good sign for the Indy 500. Maybe we'll get more than 33 entries there in the years ahead and make sure we continue to have bumping that race. But Toby Sowry, like you both mentioned, I think was very, very impressive in his debut. And I think even on that day had people saying, get this guy in a full-time seat as soon as possible, because what he did driving up really through half of the field, 24th place starting position, almost passing half the cars he would have had the opportunity to pass, getting up to 13th. Very impressive result for him. So we'll see if anything comes of that in the future. Now let's move on to our third story, our hot topic for this evening. An iRacing dream turned into a reality. IMSA's popular Whelen Mazda MX-5 Cup Series will join the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour later this fall at Martinsville Speedway. On Saturday, October 26th, the Modifieds will have their season finale race at Martinsville, while Mazda MX-5 joins the event as an exhibition race. The event will be a 300-lap doubleheader called the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 300, with Mazda MX-5 running 100 laps and the Modifieds finishing the night with a 200-lap race. Mazda MX-5 will have 2 practice sessions, single car qualifying, and the 100-lap race will be split into 2 stages. Yellow flags will not count for the first 50-lap stage, but will be in effect for the second half of the race. Prize money will also be awarded to the top 3 drivers at the stage break. This will be the first oval race in the history of Mazda MX-5 Cup, although they've competed on roval-style layouts at Daytona, Homestead, and Indianapolis before. The race winner will get $15,000 and one of Martinsville's iconic grandfather clocks. Track president Clay Campbell said this will be the first time that open-top cars will race at Martinsville since the early 1950s. The photo on your screen courtesy of IMSA. Kobe, how excited are you to see the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars race at Martinsville Speedway?
If you're asking me on a scale from 1 to 10, about a 50 to 60, like this is a really great thing to see. Like you said, this is an iRacing dream turned reality. Like this is something that you would never expect to see in real life ever. And for Mazda MX-5 Cup to race at the Paper Clip, I think it's going to put on an excellent show. I remember when they held the test session last year. They invited some of the NASCAR guys, or they invited Dale Earnhardt Jr. and O'Connor Zillich was there as well, trying to see if this crazy iRacing idea could be turned into real life. And obviously, they were satisfied enough with that exploratory test session to try to turn this into a real event. And seeing this announcement today, I think it has a lot of people excited. Saw nothing but positive thoughts from people on social media responding to this announcement. And whenever you say Mazda MX-5 Cup, the first thing that comes to my mind is close, exciting racing, especially at Daytona. The way those cars suck up in the draft and stay close together is extremely competitive racing. Lots of exciting things happen in that series, and really looking forward to seeing what they can do on a short track here. Like you said, Ben, the very first time we're going to see these cars race on an oval. I wonder what type of show they're going to put on, but I think it's going to be a really good one. I'm really looking forward to tuning in later this fall.
Yeah, it'll be chaos, absolute chaos. Can't wait for this exhibition race. One thing that I noticed in the press release, which has not been mentioned by either of you two so far, this is open to everybody. They're not locking this down to championship competitors from MX-5 or anyone from the IMSA paddock. This race is on the Saturday of the Homestead Cup Series weekend. And we know that lots of IndyCar drivers like to tune into the MX-5 broadcast. So could we see a Hinchcliffe, Alex Rossi, Scott McLaughlin even, people coming down from IndyCar to have a go on an oval at Martinsville, a track that they don't go to in IndyCar. That's another one for people to tick off their list, and have a go and bump some fenders and bang some bumpers with the traditional MX-5 championship guys that'll be in this race. I will rewind to the very first time that we did Hots and Knots. I think it was the very first time we did Hots and Knots on this program, and my hot was the Mazda MX-5 Cup races at St. Petersburg in the early part of last year. So I'm very, very high on this championship. It is excellent. As Kobe mentioned, photo finishes at Sebring and Daytona the last few years. I just think we could possibly get not a Ross Chastain moment, but a absolute standout moment at Martinsville in this first race. And then there'll be an absolute pylon for this to be in the champion. Well, maybe even put it in the championship next year as a points race, as an additional, or swapping out for somewhere else. But yeah, this is going to be very, very cool.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one more point before I let you jump in, Ben. I know everyone will be talking about Connor Zillich and the great talent that he is, and whenever he hops in these Mazda MX-5 Cups. But if you look at his racing schedule this year, I hate to say it, but Connor Zillich is going to be racing at Homestead Miami Speedway on that day, running for Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series. So probably not going to see Connor Zillich racing at Martinsville, but I'm sure the competition is going to be happy because they'll actually have a chance at winning.
True.
Well, Zillich did do his own version of a double earlier this year, right?
Oh, yeah, he did.
Truck race Dakota and then head over to the ARCA East race at wherever it was. I think Pensacola. It was 5 Flags that weekend.
Yeah,
so I suppose maybe if the scheduling works out, I don't know what the timing is going to be like, but maybe they could try to accommodate him. We'll see. But good point, Matt, as well. And Kobe bringing up Homestead. I didn't even realize that. I guess the just pulling up the Cup schedule here, the championship in Phoenix is November 10th. Martinsville is the week before, November 3rd, and this being October 26th, obviously would be the weekend before. So, I suppose puts an even bigger solo spotlight on what they're doing here with not just Mazda MX-5, but also for the modifieds. So, we'll see. Maybe that'll even continue to put further spotlight on this series. But I will be the first to admit, I know very, very little about Mazda MX-5, but every time I see it come across my feed, it's those highlights like you were talking about, Matt, that incredible finish that we saw Daytona not so long ago. And I don't doubt that we could see something very similar in Martinsville later this year. And to your point, Kobe, as well, this sounds like something that Moonhead would put together for Mooncar and iRacing, and we're going to see it here in real-life competition at the actual real-life Martinsville Speedway. So I can't wait for this. I'm already looking forward to a few months' time here and getting these MX-5 cars out on Martinsville Speedway's track.
What's going to be next? A truck race at Mont Tremblant, or just something as random as this? IndyCar goes to, I don't know, somewhere in Argentina. Like, I've obviously been mooted, but just something as random. And this is, we had the iRacing thing. Fans have obviously gone, yeah, we can make this work. They've seen this and gone, you know what, we can make this work. And they've gone with it. Good luck to them. It's going to be fantastic.
Indy next to Nazareth. That's what's next.
Maybe
I'm a little bit biased on that one.
Hey, there's been Rockingham stories floating around again this week. So, you never know.
You never know. Anything is possible. All right, Matt, I'll turn it over to you now, and you can give us the latest on the Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Ben. A very busy weekend in the Grid Endurance Performance Index. 79 races down now in the 152 race calendar, so we're past halfway. Let's give you the rundown of what happened at the weekend. We'll start right here in the UK because the British GT Championship blasted back into life after its sort of late spring, early summer break. They were at Snetterton, double 2 1-hour races. The first of them on Sunday won by Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell, the championship leaders. Kevin Say and Maxi Goetz winning the second one. At the Nürburgring, supporting the Truck Grand Prix was the ADAC GT Masters. Joseph Ovega and David Schumacher winning both races for Mercedes. His dad's been in the news this week, if you haven't seen. IMSA were up north in Canada at the weekend at CTMP, or Mosport, if you prefer. LMP2 taking the headline slot, and it was won by Tom Dillman and Nick Ball for Inter Europol. GTD Pro was a 1-2 for Corvette Racing. Antonio Garcia and Alex Sims snatching the victory. And Heart of Racing Aston Martin winning in the normal GTD category. With Roman DeAngelis and Spencer Pumpelly, we'll leave the best and the top billing till last. World Endurance Championship back, their first race on track since Le Mans. And they were in Brazil for the first time since 2012 at Interlagos. And a Toyota victory, Sebastian Buemi, Rio Hirakawa and Brendan Hartley winning in the hypercar class. Klaus Bachler, Alex Malikin, and Joel Struan winning for Porsche in GT3. So this is what happens to the Grid Endurance Performance Index points, which means with World Endurance Championship races at the weekend, so they had a bit of a shuffle, but Andre Lotterer continues to lead because he, Lauren Van Voort and Kevin Estre, first, third and fifth in our points, were second in that race and continue to lead the WEC points standings. Dane Cameron still sitting there, nicely tucked in second position. He and his teammate Felipe Nasr back in action shortly when IMSA gets back on track for their next race. There's Super GT coming up soon as well, so Kenta Yamashita and Sue Tsubi, who have been in the top 10 for the last couple of weeks, will be under threat for their top 10 position, but may find themselves moving up when Super GT comes back from its summer break. This weekend, we have double GT World Challenge races from Europe in the Sprint Cup. They're at Hockenheim, and the USA version is up at VIR this weekend, so plenty more chances for people to score. There is the top 50. Lotterer in 1, Sven Muller in 50. You can see Brendan Hartley all the way down there in 46 after his victory at the weekend for Toyota. Quick stat. We've gone past halfway. We'll throw a couple more stats for you at the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Maro Engel is the highest starter. He started 23 of our 79 scoring races. And Samantha Tan is the top female racer in the point standings. She is on 7.17 points and in 111th position, and she'll be in those GT World Challenge USA races at VIR this weekend. Bring you news and notes and results from them, as well as an updated point score for week 17 of the Grid Endurance Performance Index in this very slot on this very show next week. Now, time to hand to Kobe. He's got more of this week's headlines.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world, and starting from the world of supercars in GT World Challenge Australia/Asia. There's been a change in team ownership with one of Australia's most successful teams, Triple Eight Race Engineering. Jessica Dane has sold her stake in the team to Earl Evans and Steve Blackmore, who purchased a combined 30% equity stake from Dane. She's stepping back from her role as shareholder and board member effective immediately. However, her father, Roland Dane, will continue as non-executive chairman of Triple Eight. Tony Quinn is retaining his 40% equity stake in the team, as Jamie Wincup is set to continue his role as Triple Eight managing director and team principal. The departure of Jessica Dane from Triple Eight ownership group is significant because it's the first time that we won't have a member of the Dane family in ownership there. Jessica has worked her way up to becoming a co-owner in 2015 after previously serving in roles such as sub-assembly, team coordinator, communications manager, and team manager. At the end of 2023, she moved to the United States with partner Shane Van Gisbergen, and Jessica got a job as motorsports integration manager at General Motors. She said leaving Triple Eight was one of the most difficult decisions of her life. but she knew it was the right decision to sell her stake because being in America, focusing on her new day job meant she could only give a fraction of her time, energy, and capacity to a team that means a lot to her. And the photo you see on the screen, courtesy of AAA. In the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, the number 77 AO racing Porsche, aka Rexy, has been very popular with sports car racing fans. I'm sure you all know. However, Rexy is going to be getting a summer vacation as the Pink Roxy Porsche returns next month at Road America and Virginia International Raceway. The team's drivers, Seb Prior and Lauren Heinrich, currently lead the GTD Pro Championship standings after scoring back-to-back wins at Laguna Seca and Detroit, plus podiums at Daytona and the latest round of Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And the little stuffed dinosaur you see on your screen, you can visit the AO Racing store to purchase a Roxy plushie, graphic courtesy of the team. And for the first time since 2015, Ty Dillon will compete with Richard Childress Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. Dillon will drive the number 33 Chevrolet for his grandfather's team in this weekend's Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with sponsorship from Titan Risk Solutions. This new sponsorship deal is a multi-year, multi-car partnership for the team in 2014. Dillon got his one and only Xfinity Series win at Indy, so this place means a lot to him. Dillon said he's excited to race on the 2.5-mile oval again, and the memories of kissing the Brits come back each trip to IMS. Graphic courtesy of Richard Childress Racing. And some big news from the supercars world. James Courtney announced that he'll retire from full-time racing at the end of the 2025 Repco Supercars Championship season. Heading into the current season, Courtney signed a 2-year deal with the Blanchard Racing Team in 2015. Is set to be his 20th and final season of full-time competition. The 2010 Supercars champion and 15-time race winner already has the next phase of his life figured out. Courtney plans to have a career in real estate on the Gold Coast. Courtney said real estate is his first real job because racing has been his whole life up until now. He's always had a massive interest in real estate, and he's happy to end his full-time racing career on his own terms. Photo courtesy of the Blanchard Racing Team. And now I'm going to throw it over to Matt for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Before we get to pick a winner, well done to James Courtney. Won a terrific career, 2010 Supercars champion. And once we've obviously finished watching this show, go on to your favorite video page, i.e. YouTube, and just type in 2010 Supercars finale at Sydney. He's in the fence. They're in the fence. They're all in the fence. Just tremendous. Pick a Winner is back, and Supercars is part of it this weekend. We'll come to that shortly. We'll have WRC, Supercars, and the Formula E season finale at London EXL this weekend to pick from. We'll start with WRC, which is back in Latvia, should I say. It's the first WRC round ever in Latvia this weekend. New for everybody, which means it's a bit of an open field. But you've got to pick Kalle Rovanperä, haven't you? That's where my money's going this weekend. Let's see who Cody can go with.
Yeah, I made the mistake last time. I'm not going with Kalle Rovanperä because I was thinking this guy was about to go on a skiing trip on vacation, and he's called up last minute to replace an injured OJ. I said, no way, Kalle Rovanperä is going to basically come in and win, and that's exactly what he did in Rally Poland. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I'm going with Kalle Rovanperä to get it done in Latvia. Who you got, Ben?
I feel like my odds are probably the best if I stick with both of you and stick with somebody that's won quite a few of Pick a Winner points for me in WRC over the last couple of years. I'll go with Kalle Rovanperä as well.
Yeah, you came in with almost about 5 minutes notice last time. Now, imagine what he's got with a couple of weeks of build-up time to go before Latvia this weekend. We mentioned Supercars there at Sydney Motorsports Park this weekend, under lights on Saturday night, and then in the dusk on Sunday. Supercars is open as it's been for a long time. I'm going to go with Cam Waters to take the monster car to victory lane on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm sure that monster car is going to look really good under the lights at Sydney Motorsports Park. But I'm going to go with the other top Ford driver. They had a great race in race 1 in Townsville. Going to go with Chaz Mostert to get the job done in race 1. Who you got, Ben?
Again, not a series I follow super closely, but Cam Waters is a very talented racing driver. I like how that sounds with that Monster Energy car, Matt. I'm going to stick with you and go with Waters as well here.
Yeah, don't blame me if it all goes wrong. Mostert and his teammate Ryan Wood, by the way, running a special livery for the Under the Lights weekend this weekend at Walkinshaw Andretti United. Our final race to pick on the show tonight is the first race of the London E-Prix season finale. It all comes down to this. We saw drama there last year with track blockages and rain and all manner of things. Formula E is the most open thing we picked for, but I feel like it's kind of narrowing to a point. I'm going to go with a man that's won around that track before, and I'm going to go with Mitch Evans to win on Saturday.
I think that's a great pick, but I'm going to go different. I think one of the Porsche drivers is going to keep his top streak going. I think Antonio Felix da Costa is going to get race 1, but at the end of the day, when we're crowning the Formula E World Champion, I think Nick Cassidy is going to hold on to it.
You know, I feel like it's very open-ended, as Matt said, but Pascal Wehrlein is just calling my name for some reason, so I'm going to go with him for race 1. And why not? I feel like it's a 3-horse race. I see him third in the standings right now. We're tied with Mitch Evans, I guess. I guess Evans has the edge on countback. But why not? Pascal Wehrlein to win race 1 AMA Championship in Formula E.
All of that covered, of course, on the Grid Live pre-race show and post-race, of course, over the weekend with 2 races across the weekend for Formula E in its season finale. It's strange to be having a season finale at the end of July, but here we are. And, of course, Supercars and WRC and everything else covered across the weekend shows. Adam is going Robin Pera for Latvia. He's going Chaz Mostert with Kobe for race 1 at Sydney, and he is going with Nick Cassidy for race 1 at London. Time for, John says, go Ty Dillon. Yeah, what 2015? That just seems an incredibly long time ago that he was last with RCR, but there you go. Time flies when you're having fun. And we're having fun with Hots and Knots. Ben, leave the floor. Quite a bit on at the weekend. I've not seen any of it, but I have a hot, just a singular hot. What's your hots from the weekend past?
Well, I've got a couple of knots, but I'll save those, obviously. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it says something about me, but it's always easier for me to come up with what I didn't like from the weekend. I try not to be a Debbie Downer all the time, but I will say this about NASCAR. I've been critical of race control sometimes this year, but the hot for me is that they got the Truck Series race finished, and they persevered through the constant pop-up showers that we were getting at Pocono. They never lost hope because they never lost a track. And they were able to finish the race and finish it just in time, because even though the sun was still shining on the Pocono Raceway, rain was coming down as Corey Heim was giving his interview on the front stretch. So literally at the last possible moment, they found the window of opportunity and they got the race finished, but I don't think it would have mattered either way. Corey Heim is just in a class of his own. So that's another hot, I suppose you could say as well. He and Christian Eckes, we always try to come up with a big 3 these days, it feels like, and I guess if you had to make a stretch, you can maybe throw Nick Sanchez in there from a Truck Series, but right now it looks like Heim and Eckes versus the field. I know Brandon and I have been talking about that the last several weeks here on the Encore show, but then again, it looked like it was Corey Heim's to lose last year, and he ran into Carson Hocevar, ran into him, and then he ran back into Carson Hocevar, and then all hell broke loose after that. So you never know what's going to happen in this format, but those are your 2 odds-on favorites, I think, at this point in the Truck Series. Matthew Owens saying hot other than the weather. Boy, that's true right now as well. Should be the crowd at Pocono again. They have packed that place every year since going to 1 week post-pandemic. That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's a single track on the schedule, including the Daytonas and Bristols of the world, that need 2 dates. I think when you have only 1 date a year, it makes the 1 date that you have that much more special. It brings the crowd out and you can fill the grandstands up even more. And it makes that date more important, and certainly hot with Adam as well. Brickyard 400 on the IMS Oval. But again, if you have to have 2 dates at a track, if you have a second layout, use that for your second date. I like having 1 race at each unique venue that we go to. John Bender asking, is IndyCar racing at Toronto due to all the rain? Full disclosure, I didn't know about the weather there until Adam brought it up in the chat earlier in the show. So you're going to have to go ask somebody else. I haven't had a chance to look further into that. I haven't heard of any contingency plans in place for Toronto should the flooding continue. Certainly hoping the best for everybody up there. But at this time, I don't know what the situation is. As far as I know, everything's still set to go ahead as scheduled for now.
Yeah, same. I didn't know about it until Adam brought it up before. I guess it's Wednesday and we'll have to wait a little bit closer into the weekend to get any kind of news of what's going on. So keep across IndyCar socials for that. My hot is from IndyCar, although I've not seen the races from Iowa at the weekend, but I heard they were particularly terrible apart from the crash. But my hot is Lee Diffie. Thank you, Lee. It's been a great run, and we're going to miss you on IndyCar broadcast from NBC. But what a way to go out with two guys from his part of the world winning the races at the weekend, Scott McLaughlin and Will Power. That's just a terrific tick box for Lee Diffie to ride off towards Paris. I guess he's probably on his way now already towards Paris for the Olympic break. That's my hot. My not is the Olympic break, and I'll tell you why. We're a week out from the Olympic break. Let me just get my calendar back up on my phone here. And I'll tell you what's on this weekend prior to the Olympic break. Formula E in London, 2 races. NASCAR at the Brickyard, including Xfinity. Supercars at Sydney, WRC Latvia, Formula 1, 2 and 3 in Hungary, World Superbike in Czech Republic, British Superbike at Brands Hatch, GT World Challenge Europe at Hockenheim. There's touring cars at Interlagos. There's GT World Challenge America. Next week, apart from the Spa Grand Prix, there's nothing. The week after, there's barely anything. And then the week after that, there's barely anything. I know you want to get out of the way with the Olympics. I don't want to sound too much like Josh here and go, oh my goodness, there's loads on this weekend. But there's loads on this weekend. You won't be far away from any motorsport before we all sit around watching whitewater rafting, swimming and pole vault, which we're looking forward to. But there's lots of motorsport to get your teeth into this weekend, and it all happens to be on the same weekend.
And trucks and an ARCA East combo race at IRP down the road from the Brickyard as well.
That too.
So, lots of stuff going on. But I don't know. It's more a hot for me, Matt. Maybe it's just because this year, more than ever, I'm feeling burnt out. I'm ready for a couple of weeks off to sit back and watch some swimming and gymnastics and track and field and all the other Olympic sports. So I'm going to be camped out in front of my TV for the Paris Games. I can promise you that. And to have motorsports, our usual schedule on top of that, I think I can deal with a couple of weeks break myself. But I know I certainly don't speak for everybody there. I guess that's it's a hot and a not. It's just come to mind for me. The hot is that with IndyCar going to Fox, the Olympic break isn't going to be an issue going forward. But the not on top of that is, I guess the counter would be the World Cup in 2026 would present a similar problem.
We're not talking about soccer tonight.
With Fox. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I was probably, I've got cousins and an uncle who's a big soccer fan, or football as you call it over there in England. So I know they were pulling for England. I was certainly pulling for them. But still a great day of soccer nonetheless. But we'll keep it to motorsports here because I know you guys are obviously upset with how the Euros turned out. So apologies about that. But moving on to my not here, it's been on my mind for the last few days. What is going on with Corey LaJoie? Oh. And I'll tell you what, it's not even the not isn't even LaJoie. It's more the fact that I would not have shed a tear if he got suspended. To be quite honest with you, I don't know if the SMT data has been made public yet. I suppose only Corey knows for sure what his full intentions were driving the race car. It certainly looked pretty dead on intentional to all of us, and even to Jeff Burton on the NBC broadcast. To his credit, he did not hold back there. Actually, a couple weeks in a row he hasn't held back. He didn't like the fact that Kyle Busch got his spot back after whatever it was, the third overtime or second overtime. I can't remember. There were too many overtimes to keep track of. But he was not afraid to call out Corey LaJoie this weekend as well on the broadcast. So I've been a little critical of Jeff in the booth, but I'll give him credit for holding his ground and not being afraid to speak his mind the last couple of weeks. I appreciate that. But the fact that there was no penalty at all, I guess 1 weekend after the Chicago street race where Bubba Wallace got fined $50,000 justifiably. I want to add, I had no problem with that. My problem was that nothing came of the Chase Elliott Daniel Suarez run in as well. That happened on the same race weekend. But this, you're turning a guy going into turn one on a restart at one of the most dangerous corners on the NASCAR calendar, and it doesn't just take out Kyle Busch; it takes out half a dozen cars with him. I don't know. It just seems very inconsistent to me. That Corey LaJoie was not penalized for that. But then, this was a stat that was actually just shared in a group chat I'm in right before we came on the air. To Corey's credit, he has been competitive at Atlanta in the past. Maybe should have even won a race there had Chase Elliott not blocked him a couple of years ago. He's had some strong runs at Daytona and Talladega in the past as well. But on non-drafting tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series, Corey LaJoie has 222 starts. 0 wins, 0 pole positions, 0 top 5s, 0 top 10s. So,
Ouch.
I mean, you can blame the equipment all you want. You know, Carson Hocevar has been very impressive. Obviously, he needs to clean up the driving himself a little bit, and I think has a ways to go in terms of maturity. But there's no denying his talent and his pace. And Zane Smith, of course, it has not been the season that he was hoping for, but you know, even he was able to work his strategy up to a second-place finish Nashville a couple of weekends ago. You know, you're kind of running out of excuses. In fact, I saw the Instagram comments were pretty ruthless for Corey this weekend. It looks like we lost Matt here. Matt, do we have you back?
I'm back.
There we go.
I'm not going anywhere.
There was an Instagram comment this weekend under one of the Corey LaJoie posts that said stacking excuses rather than stacking pennies this podcast. So I don't know. I feel like Corey LaJoie, it's kind of been like the Matt DiBenedetto arc in many respects. You know, you go from a very popular underdog who hasn't had the greatest of equipment, who gets into a ride eventually that, you know, while maybe not a Hendrick or Gibbs level of equipment, you know, Matt had, you know, the Levi and Family Racing 95 car, which had the Gibbs affiliation, and then the Wood Brothers car, which had the Penske affiliation, still couldn't win a race there. Corey LaJoie still can't seem to get results with a Spire team. It seems to have come into their own now and is starting to make those steps forward to become a more competitive team. And yet it seems like every other week we're talking about Corey LaJoie being caught up in one of these controversies or incidents. I don't know. It seems to me Rodney Childers has his work cut out for him next year, and Corey better hope that he's a damn good miracle worker, because what's going on in that 7 car right now is getting harder and harder to defend by the week here, and I think it came to a boiling point this weekend. That's my knot, and I think a lot of other people's knots as well.
Yeah, Rodney's got his work cut out next year, certainly. Adam says, what's not parking for the Cup Series race at Pocono? You think they would have had enough chances to get that right, the amount of times we've been to Pocono. If they're still having trouble getting people parked, then that's a problem. Can I do I'll just read Matthew's comment first before I do a promotional hot. The biggest hot in the world is the upcoming weekend. I'm so thrilled over the great white moon that the Brickyard 400 is back. And if you click behind the mic, you will go to his page and find that the Ultimate Sports Radio Network and Matthew has been very busy. We have put together a Indianapolis docu-series about the Brickyard 400, which is rolling out on Matthew's channel, and it is extremely good indeed. And you will find lots of excellent information and old clips and such like from all the way back to 94. He'll get 5, whatever it was. I'm sure he'll tell me that I've got that wrong, because that's what he does in a moment. But there you go. Corey has not been good, and he's starting to get on my nerves. He'll soon be stacking burgers rather than stacking pennies. Ouch. So yes, Brickyard 400 extremely hot this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and again, you know, another Corey LaJoie stat. I mean, I know he won that modified race in Martinsville a couple of years ago, but it's not just the Cup Series. No wins across all 3 of NASCAR's National Touring Series as well. So again, kind of running out of the excuses here for Corey LaJoie, and I think, as Matthew mentioned, starting to get on a lot of people's nerves with his antics this weekend at Pocono.
Excellent stuff. I think we're pretty much done for the show tonight. Thank you, Ben, for stepping in place of Mr. Birch. He'll be back with World Superbike Donington Park stories, I'm sure, on the show next week after his little trip up there last weekend.
Lots to look forward to there. And thank you, Matt, and thank you, Kobe, as well, as always, for giving me the opportunity to fill in. Really appreciate it. And Matt, I know we're doing the best we can for you. We bumped the show up half an hour, and we're not even at 50 minutes yet here, and I'm about to roll into the closing. So hopefully you're doing a little bit better, getting some sleep over there in the UK. But we thank you again for the sacrifices
been a struggle
to help make this show work. So much appreciated there. And much appreciated all of you for watching as well. Let's take a look at our upcoming schedule here on the Grid Network. On Saturday, as always, we'll have Grid Live pre-race at noon Eastern, and then Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up will be on the air 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race in Indianapolis wraps up. And then Brandon and I will be back on Monday with Grid Encore, the ARCA and ARCA East combo race at IRP, along with the Truck Series, and then Xfinity also at IMS, the Brickyard, and Formula 2 and Formula 3 are back in Hungary as well. So lots to recap there. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of that. Thank you all so much for helping us get to 1,000 subscribers, and join us on the road to 2,000 and beyond now. And make sure you hit the bell icon as well so that you get notified every time we go on the air or upload a new video. And be sure to also follow us on all our social media platforms at Grid Network TV across the board now, and visit gridnetworktv.com. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes after the show to consider investing in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks who help keep us on the air. And once we hit our goal of $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races on a more regular basis. That will only continue to help us expand our coverage for you, the viewers. Link to that is in the description box below. As it is for buying me a coffee, if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can still get your name on the board, invest as much as you want in this project here at the Grid Network. Consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee as well, and they'll thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth, for Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and NASCAR.info. Thank you for watching. So long, everyone. We will see you next time.